Tupac's godmother, America's most wanted fugitive, the woman who escaped the system, birth of a revolutionary 1947-1969, before the FBI posters, before the prison walls, before the gunfire on the New Jersey Turnpike, before exile in Cuba. There was a little black girl in Queens, New York, who had no idea she would become one of the most hunted women in American history. She was born Joanne Deborah Byron on July 16, 1947, in Flushing, Queens. America at that time was deeply segregated, not always by law in the North, but by poverty, housing discrimination, police brutality, and fear. Joanne's parents separated early. Her childhood split between New York City and Wilmington, North Carolina, two very different Americas, but united by one thing: racism was everywhere. In North Carolina, she saw it clearly. White kids went to better schools. White families lived in better houses. White police ruled the streets. And when black people stepped out of line, punishment came fast and brutal. As a child, Joanne learned early that the world was unfair, that some lives were protected and others were disposable. By her teenage years, that quiet awareness turned into rage. She returned to New York City in the 1960s, just as America was exploding. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, police riots, civil rights marches, assassinations, the Vietnam War. The streets were on fire with ideas and anger. She attended Borough of Manhattan Community College, later enrolling at City College of New York. It was there she encountered radical black politics for the first time. Not just the dream of equality, but the demand for power. She joined discussions, read revolutionary literature, studied African history, learned about slavery, colonialism, COINTELPRO, FBI infiltration of black movements, police surveillance of activists. By her own later writing, she said, "I was awakening to the reality that black people in America were occupied, colonized people." It was around this time she rejected her birth name. She renamed herself Assata Shakur, meaning, "She who struggles, the one who fights, and is thankful." The name was not symbolic. It was a declaration of war. Welcome to Shadowline Stories. Please hit the like button and subscribe. While you are here, comment your view on the story and tell us where you are watching from. The Black Panther Party and the Road to Militancy. Assata joined the Black Panther Party (BPP) in the late 1960s. The Panthers weren't just protesters. They fed children free breakfasts, ran health clinics, monitored police patrols, carried guns openly, taught political theory, demanded self-defense to the U.S. government. They were domestic enemies. To young black Americans, they were heroes. But by the early 1970s, the movement was being destroyed from the inside. The FBI's COINTELPRO program planted informants, created fake rivalries, spread lies, orchestrated arrests. Executed leaders. Fred Hampton was murdered in his bed by police in Chicago. Dozens of Panthers were jailed or killed. The movement splintered. Out of those ashes rose a more secretive, more militant group, the Black Liberation Army, BLA. Unlike the Panthers, the BLA believed the U.S. government was at war with black people. Armed resistance was the only answer. Police were not protectors. They were enemy soldiers. Assata became associated with the BLA. From that moment forward, she was marked. Police departments, state troopers, federal agents. They all began watching her. She was arrested repeatedly in the early 1970s for various alleged crimes, robberies, assaults, shootouts. But she was acquitted again and again. Yet each trial drained her finances. Each arrest hardened her reputation. Each acquittal fueled police resentment. The pressure was building, and it would explode on a dark highway in New Jersey. The Turnpike Execution, 1973, May 7, 1973, 12:45 a.m. Assata Shakur was riding in a blue Pontiac on the New Jersey Turnpike with two BLA members. Zaid Malik, Shakur Sundiata, Akoli state troopers pulled them over. Official reason? A broken taillight. What happened next took less than 60 seconds, and it would rewrite American history. The shootout. According to police, the troopers approached. A gun was drawn inside the car. A firefight exploded. State Trooper Werner Forster, 34 years old, was shot and killed. Another trooper, James Harper, was wounded but survived. Zaid Malik Shakur was shot dead at the scene. Assata was shot twice, once in the chest, once in the arm. She was unarmed when arrested. Assata's version. From her hospital bed, bleeding and handcuffed, Assata told a very different story. She claimed, "The troopers opened fire without warning. She had both hands raised. She never fired a weapon. She was shot while surrendering. The fatal shot came from another gun. Medical evidence later confirmed she was shot with her arms raised. Her wounds were consistent with surrender. Yet despite this, she was charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder assault on an officer, illegal weapons possession, armed robbery. The prosecution argued, even if she didn't pull the trigger, she was part of the crime. Therefore, she was responsible for the death." The trial that shook America, 1977. Assata's trial did not begin until 4 years later. During that time, she endured solitary confinement, shackling to hospital beds, strip searches, continuous surveillance isolation. She would later say, "They treated me like an animal, not a human being." The trial became a national spectacle. Prosecution painted her as a violent terrorist, a cop killer, a revolutionary who wanted blood. Defense showed medical evidence, eyewitness contradictions, ballistics inconsistencies, police misconduct. But in 1977, the jury delivered its verdict. Guilty. Sentence: life in prison, 96 to 33 years. To law enforcement, justice was served. To her supporters, it was political execution by courtroom. Assata Shakur was sent to Clinton Correctional Facility for women in New Jersey. The state believed they had buried her forever. They were wrong. The prison break that humiliated America, 1979, November 2nd, 1979. Prison visiting hours. Two men walked into Clinton Correctional Facility. They were calm, polite, normal. They signed in, and then they pulled out guns. In seconds, two guards were taken hostage. A getaway van smashed through security gates. Assata Shakur was freed. No one was killed. The van disappeared down the road. New Jersey State Police were in shock. The FBI was enraged. America was embarrassed. One of the most high-profile political prisoners of the era had just vanished. Assata Shakur was now officially a fugitive, underground, and escape from the United States, 1979-1984. For years, no one knew where she was. Rumors spread. New York, California, Chicago, Pittsburgh. The FBI raided homes, tailed families, tapped phones, nothing. Then in 1984, the truth surfaced. Assata Shakur was in Cuba. Fidel Castro's government granted her political asylum. The U.S. demanded her return. Cuba refused. From that moment forward, the United States could never legally touch her again. She had escaped not just prison, she had escaped the country. Exile writing in the FBI Most Wanted list in Cuba, Assata rebuilt her life. She learned Spanish, taught political theory, became a public speaker, raised a daughter, wrote her autobiography. In 1987, she published Assata, an autobiography. The book exploded worldwide. She described torture, racism, frame-ups, political warfare, prison abuse, psychological terror. To young activists, she became a freedom fighter, a revolutionary icon, a living legend. To U.S. law enforcement, she became a symbol of humiliation, a reminder of escape, a permanent open wound. 2013. The FBI declares her a terrorist 40 years after the Turnpike shooting. The FBI escalated. They placed her on the most wanted terrorist list. She became the first woman in U.S. history ever labeled a domestic terrorist by the FBI. A $2 million bounty was announced for her capture. New Jersey's governor called her a cold-blooded cop killer hiding under dictatorship protection. Activists responded, "She is a political refugee, not a terrorist." The war of narratives returned in full force. Tupac Shakur and the bloodline of revolution. Assata Shakur was not just a fugitive, she was family. She was the godmother and step-aunt of Tupac Shakur. Tupac's mother, Assata Shakur, was also a former Black Panther. Revolution was literally in Tupac's blood. Though Tupac never met her in Cuba, her influence haunted his life and music. Many of his lyrics echoed her philosophy. They got money for wars but can't feed the poor. We ain't ready to see a black president. I see no changes. The rage, the pain, the resistance, all flowed from the same roots. Assata became a spiritual symbol to hip-hop culture, a reminder that before the music industry, before fame, before charts, there was a war for black survival. Death in Exile 2025. In September 2025, after more than 40 years on the run, Assata Shakur died in Havana, Cuba, at 78 years old. Cause: natural health complications of old age. She was never extradited, never retried, never imprisoned again. The U.S. never got her back. Reactions exploded worldwide. Police unions mourned an unavenged officer. Activists mourned a revolutionary mother. Social media ignited with arguments. Was she a killer? Was she a hero? Was she both? Final truth: why Assata Shakur still divides America. Her story forces one impossible question. If the system is violent, is resistance criminal? Some see a murderer who escaped justice. Others see a woman crushed by a racist system and who refused to die in a cage. Assata Shakur became more than a person. She became a symbol of rebellion, a reminder of state power, a ghost the U.S. government never caught, a lesson that even the strongest prison can be broken. She escaped the police, the courts, the prison, the country, the government. But she never escaped the argument surrounding her name.